Disabled alien girl's last hope. The human doctor who changed her life. HFY stories. A desperate plea for help. Lyra stared out the window of the small room she had called home for years. The stars outside seemed so distant, much like the hope she once had. She had been trapped in this metal box, a quiet corner of a space station orbiting a distant planet, for what felt like a lifetime. A lifetime of pain, frustration, and loneliness. Lyra wasn't like the other aliens. She had been injured in a terrible accident when she was younger, leaving her paralyzed from the waist down. Her people, advanced as they were in so many ways, had no cure for her condition. No one could help her. They had all told her she would live the rest of her life this way. The weight of their words crushed her every day. At first, she had fought against it. She had spent hours each day trying to move, trying to regain some control over her body. But as the months turned into years, she lost the fight. There were days when she didn't want to wake up. Days when she thought the universe would be better off without her. Her isolation wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. Lyra had withdrawn from everyone around her. Her people came to visit, but she could see the pity in their eyes, the sympathy they couldn't hide. It only made her feel more useless. She wasn't like them anymore. She wasn't even like herself. But then one day, things began to change. The human doctor arrived. Lyra had heard rumors about him. Dr. Evan, they called him. A human doctor who had become famous for treating alien species. He was part of a medical exchange program between humans and other galaxies. Lyra didn't care much for the details. She didn't care about humans. She didn't care about anything anymore. When Dr. Evan entered her room for the first time, Lyra was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her eyes barely lifted to meet his. He was tall, with short dark hair and kind eyes. His uniform was neat. His face set in a look of quiet determination. "Hello, Lyra," he said softly, his voice gentle but firm. "I'm Dr. Evan. I'm here to help." Lyra didn't respond. She didn't see the point. Everyone had promised to help her, and they all failed. What could this human possibly do that was different? Dr. Evan didn't seem to mind her silence. He pulled a chair up beside her bed and sat down. "I know you've been through a lot," he began, "but I want you to know that I'm here for you. I want to try something different, something that could work." Lyra's gaze shifted slightly, her eyes flickering with a hint of curiosity. Try something different? She had heard that before. But there was something in his voice. It wasn't just empty words. There was something in the way he spoke that made her want to believe him. Even if she didn't want to, he didn't try to rush her. He gave her time to process, time to react in her own way. He knew what it was like to feel hopeless, to feel like nothing could ever change. "I've studied your condition," he continued, "and I believe there's a way to help you regain some of what you've lost. It won't be easy, but I think it's possible." Lyra turned her head slightly, her lips parting as if she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. "Help me? Could it really be possible?" She had been told her condition was incurable. Her people had even given up on her. But here was a human, a species she had barely interacted with, promising her something she hadn't dared to believe in for years. "I understand if you don't believe me," Dr. Evans said, as though reading her thoughts, "but I'm not here to make empty promises. I'm here to work with you, to give you a chance." Lyra closed her eyes. She couldn't look at him anymore. The hope in his words, it hurt too much. She had spent so long shutting herself off from the world, from any kind of emotional connection. She didn't want to feel vulnerable again, didn't want to trust someone else only to be let down. But something inside her stirred. There was a flicker of something long buried in her heart. She wasn't sure if it was hope or just a desperation, but it was there. Dr. Evan didn't push. He sat quietly beside her, respecting her space. It wasn't until the end of the day that he finally spoke again. "Lyra, I'm going to start with small steps," he said gently. I'm not going to promise you instant results, but I will promise that I'll give everything I have to help you. I won't give up." She didn't respond, but she didn't push him away either. She simply lay there, thinking, feeling something deep inside her. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel completely alone. Maybe, just maybe, this human could help her after all. As the days passed, Lyra began to see more of Dr. Evan. He worked with her every day, slowly gaining her trust. He didn't push her. He didn't demand she believe in him right away. He just showed up day after day, with a quiet determination and a kind heart. Lyra wasn't sure what was happening inside her. She didn't know if it was the treatment working or if it was something else entirely. But there was one thing she knew for certain. Dr. Evan was different. He didn't look at her with pity. He didn't treat her as if she were broken. He treated her like she was a person worthy of help and hope. And for the first time in a long time, Lyra allowed herself to wonder what it would be like to trust again. A bond beyond healing. Lyra wasn't sure how it happened, but something was different. Every day, Dr. Evan arrived like clockwork. His presence was no longer a reminder of the things she couldn't do. Instead, it became something she began to look forward to. She wasn't sure if it was the quiet determination in his eyes or the way his hands gently adjusted the machines and devices that worked to restore her mobility. But she started to believe him. She started to hope. The first few days were full of small progressions. Lyra didn't feel like she was getting better, not in any way that mattered, but the treatments were helping. Every small achievement, like moving a finger or twitching her toes, was met with praise from Dr. Evan. At first, she thought it was just part of his job, encouraging her to keep going. But she soon realized that it wasn't fake. He genuinely celebrated each small victory with her, and for the first time in a long while, Lyra felt seen. She still didn't trust him fully. How could she? How could she trust anyone again? She had been let down so many times before. She had closed herself off from the world, telling herself that no one could fix her, that no one could help her. But there was something about Dr. Evan. His patience was unending. He never pushed her to do more than she was ready for. He always seemed to understand when she needed time and when she needed encouragement. It was one evening after another successful treatment session that Lyra caught herself watching him. He was sitting across from her, reviewing her medical data on a tablet. She had become so accustomed to his quiet presence that she had stopped feeling awkward in his company. But tonight was different. Tonight, she realized she had started looking forward to his visits, not just for the progress they were making, but for the small moments they shared. The way he smiled when she made progress, the way his voice softened when he spoke to her. "You're doing great, Lyra," Dr. Evan said, as he looked up from his tablet. "You're making progress faster than I expected. We're going to keep pushing forward, but you've come a long way." Lyra nodded, feeling a sense of pride she hadn't felt in years, but her heart wasn't as light as it seemed. She could feel the stirring inside her, a growing attachment to him. She wasn't sure what to make of it. He was just her doctor, just someone trying to help. That's all he was supposed to be. Yet as the days turned into weeks, Lyra found herself seeking out his company, even when he wasn't treating her. She found herself asking more questions, not about her treatment but about him. Little things, like where he came from, what his life was like back on Earth, and what made him want to become a doctor. He answered with patience and humor, telling her stories about his family, about the places he had visited, and about the challenges he faced in his work. Lyra listened, quietly fascinated. She had never really cared much about anyone's story, let alone a human's, but Dr. Evan had a way of making her feel like everything he said mattered. He didn't judge her for her silence, for her reluctance to open up. He simply gave her space to process. As the treatments continued, Lyra began to feel a shift within herself. It wasn't just her body that was healing, it was her heart. She had started to trust Dr. Evan in a way she hadn't trusted anyone in years. The thought of leaning on him no longer terrified her. She could almost feel the weight lifting off her shoulders, though she was still unsure of the path ahead. One day, as they sat in the quiet of her room, she couldn't stop herself from asking, "Why do you keep helping me?" Dr. Evan looked up from the tablet, his expression soft. "Because I believe in you, Lyra, and I believe in the work we're doing. I know it's not just about healing your body, it's about helping you find hope again. It's about showing you that you're not alone." Lyra felt her throat tighten. His words went deeper than any treatment ever could. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust him. But she had been let down so many times before. She had been told lies by those who said they cared. Yet, with Dr. Evan, something felt different. He wasn't lying. He was telling her the truth. "Why me?" she asked again, her voice barely a whisper. Dr. Evan's eyes softened, and he set the tablet down. "Because you matter, Lyra. You're not just another patient. You're a person. And you deserve to be seen, to be heard, to be helped. I didn't come here to fix you. I came here to walk with you, every step of the way." Lyra's heart raced, and she quickly looked away, not wanting him to see how his words affected her. But the truth was undeniable. She could feel something stirring inside her, something she hadn't felt in years. It was hope. Hope for herself, for the future, and maybe even for something more. But the fear still lingered. What if this was all just temporary? What if in the end she would be left alone again, unable to trust anyone ever again? She wasn't ready for that. She wasn't sure if she ever would be. Yet something inside her whispered that maybe she could let him in. Maybe, just maybe, this human doctor could be the one who helped her heal, not just her body, but her soul. As the days passed, Lyra's progress became more noticeable. She started to regain movement in her legs, small shifts at first, but enough to make her believe it was possible. Her heart raced with excitement, but also with fear. What would happen when she was able to walk again? Would she feel free? Or would the weight of her past still drag her down? For the first time in a long time, Lyra didn't know what the future held. But she knew one thing: Dr. Evan had given her a chance to believe in herself again, a chance to hope again. And for that, she would always be grateful. Part 3. Breaking barriers. Lyra woke up to the soft hum of the machines around her. The room was still dark, the only light coming from the dim glow of the medical devices. She stretched slowly, feeling the stiffness in her muscles. But there was something different this time. Her legs, she could feel them. It wasn't much. Just a small twitch in her right leg, but it was enough to make her heart skip a beat. The treatments were working. Dr. Evan's work was making a difference. But with this progress came something else. A feeling she had been avoiding for weeks. The more she healed, the more she found herself thinking about him, Dr. Evan, his kindness, his patience, the way he looked at her not as a broken alien but as a person. It was all so different from the way others had treated her. She wasn't used to it. She wasn't sure if she was ready for it. Lyra sat up in bed, running her hands over the sheets. Her thoughts were a whirlwind. She had always kept her emotions locked away, too afraid to feel anything. But Dr. Evan had a way of breaking down those walls. He made her feel safe, even when she didn't want to. She wasn't sure when it started, but somewhere along the way, she had begun to trust him. The door to her room opened softly, and there he was, Dr. Evan. His face was warm, his smile easy, but there was a look of concern in his eyes when he saw her sitting up. "You're up early," he said. Walking toward her, Lyra gave a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I couldn't sleep." Dr. Evan paused beside her, watching her carefully. He knew she wasn't telling him everything. Lyra had always been good at hiding her true feelings. But he also knew that now wasn't the time to push her. "How are you feeling?" he asked gently. Lyra hesitated before answering. Better, I guess. He raised an eyebrow, his gaze thoughtful. Better isn't the same as good, Lyra. You've been making incredible progress, but I know there's more going on in your head. If you need to talk, I'm here. Lyra looked down at her hands, suddenly feeling exposed. She didn't want to talk about what was inside her. She didn't want to admit the fear that had been growing inside her since she started healing. The fear of what it would mean to trust him, to rely on him. She didn't want to be vulnerable again. I'm fine, she said. Her voice quieter than she meant it to be. Dr. Evan didn't argue. He never did when she pushed him away. He simply sat down beside her, offering her the space she needed. Okay, he said softly. But just so you know, I'm not going anywhere. Lyra's heart skipped a beat at his words. She wasn't sure what it was about them that made her chest tighten. She had been alone for so long. She had built walls around herself to protect her from the world. And now here he was, breaking through them. She wasn't sure if she was ready for that. But as the days went by, Lyra began to see the truth in Dr. Evan's words. He wasn't going anywhere. He was there every day, helping her, encouraging her, and never once making her feel like a burden. The more time they spent together, the more she found herself looking forward to his visits. It wasn't just about the treatments anymore. It was about him. She started to notice the little things about him. The way he smiled when she made progress. The way he laughed when she tried to joke around, even though her humor was often dry and sarcastic. He made her feel like she wasn't broken, like she was worth something. It was both comforting and terrifying. She didn't know how to handle it. She had spent so many years pushing people away, convincing herself that no one could help her. No one could care. But Dr. Evan was different. It wasn't just the physical healing that made her nervous. It was the emotional one. The part of her that was starting to feel things she hadn't allowed herself to feel in so long. The connection between them was undeniable, and for the first time, Lyra felt something stir deep inside her. One afternoon, after a particularly long session of physical therapy, Lyra found herself sitting in the small room, her legs hanging over the edge of the bed. She could feel the muscles in her legs aching from the effort, but it was a good kind of ache. A sign of progress. She wasn't sure how long she sat there, lost in thought, but then she heard the door open. Dr. Evan stepped inside, his face lighting up when he saw her. How are you feeling? He asked, his voice full of concern. Lyra gave him a small smile. Tired, but good. I can actually feel my legs now. His eyes softened. That's great news. I'm proud of you. Lyra's smile faded slightly. You're proud of me? Why? Dr. Evan stepped closer to her, sitting down on the edge of the bed. Because you're fighting, Lyra. You're doing something most people wouldn't be able to do. You're taking control of your own healing. That's not easy. Lyra looked away, unsure of how to respond. She wasn't used to compliments. She wasn't used to someone seeing her strength. For so long, all she had seen in herself was weakness. I'm just doing what you tell me to do, she said softly. Dr. Evan chuckled, but it wasn't mocking. It's not just about following instructions. It's about you putting in the effort, you believing that it's possible. Lyra shifted uncomfortably. I don't know if I believe in anything anymore. There it was, the truth she had been hiding. The doubt, the fear, the deep, gnawing uncertainty. She wasn't sure if she could keep going. Not when it felt like everything was falling apart. Dr. Evan reached out and placed his hand on hers. I believe in you, Lyra, and I'm not going to stop believing in you, no matter what. Her heart raced at the words. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know how to explain the storm of emotions that were swirling inside her. But for the first time in a long time, she felt something other than pain and fear. She felt hope. Thank you, she whispered. Dr. Evan smiled, his grip tightening. Slightly. You don't have to thank me. I'm here for you, Lyra, always. Lyra didn't say anything more. She didn't need to. In that moment, she realized something. She wasn't alone anymore. She didn't have to carry the weight of her world on her shoulders. Dr. Evan was there, and for the first time, she allowed herself to feel that truth. A leap of faith. The days seemed to stretch on, each one filled with a mix of excitement and fear. Lyra had made remarkable progress, but she knew there was still much to overcome. Her legs, once still and lifeless, were now filled with feeling. She could wiggle her toes, move her ankles, and even take small steps with help. But every step she took felt like a leap into the unknown. She wasn't sure if she could keep going, if she was strong enough for the journey ahead. Dr. Evan was with her every step of the way, his unwavering presence a constant source of comfort. He had become more than just her doctor. He was her rock, her support, and the person who made her believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have a future. But the closer they got, the more her fear grew. One evening, after a particularly long session, Lyra sat on the edge of the bed, her legs resting on the floor. She could feel the weight of her own body in a way she hadn't in years. It felt strange and unfamiliar, but it also felt right. She looked up at Dr. Evan, who was standing across the room, reviewing her progress on the tablet. "You've come so far," he said, his voice filled with pride. "I knew you had it in you." Lyra nodded, but her heart felt heavy. "I don't know if I can do it," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Evan turned to look at her, his expression softening. "What do you mean?" "You've been incredible, Lyra. You've made more progress than anyone expected." "I know," she replied, her eyes on the floor. "But it's not just about walking, Dr. Evan. It's about everything else. It's about letting go." Dr. Evan walked over and sat beside her. "Letting go of what?" Lyra took a deep breath, her hands clenched in her lap. "Letting go of the fear. Letting go of the walls I've built around myself for so long. I don't know how to trust again. I don't know how to let myself be vulnerable." Dr. Evan was silent for a moment, as though considering her words. "Lyra, I'm not asking you to let go of everything at once. I'm not asking you to trust me completely right away. All I'm asking is that you take one step. One step toward healing, one step toward the future." Lyra's chest tightened. She didn't know how to explain it, but the thought of letting go terrified her. She had spent so many years pushing people away, convincing herself that she was better off alone. She didn't want to rely on anyone. She didn't want to feel weak, but Dr. Evan was different. He wasn't like the others. He had been patient, understanding, and kind. He had never pushed her when she wasn't ready. He had always been there, supporting her when she needed it most. And yet, she couldn't shake the fear that if she let herself feel too much, if she let herself trust too fully, it would all come crashing down. "I can't do this," she whispered, shaking her head. "I can't open myself up like that. I can't risk being hurt again." Dr. Evan reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "Lyra, you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to carry everything by yourself. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of insincerity. But all she saw was warmth, care, and honesty. She had never allowed herself to see anyone this way. She had always kept herself guarded, but now, for the first time, she found herself wanting to believe him, wanting to trust him. She squeezed his hand, the tension in her body slowly beginning to ease. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I know you are," Dr. Evans said softly. "But that's okay. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to take that first step." Lyra closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. The fear was still there, lingering like a shadow in the back of her mind, but there was something else too, something brighter, something that made her want to try. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in years, She felt the possibility of something more. She looked up at him, her eyes meeting his. What if I fall? What if I can't do it? Dr. Evans smiled, his grip tightening on her hand. Then I'll be here to help you get back up. Every time, Lyra's heart fluttered in her chest. She had never felt this way before, this sense of hope. It was like a small spark inside her that was growing, threatening to burn away the fear and the doubts. She had spent so long hiding from the world, but now, with Dr. Evan beside her, she felt like maybe she could face it. Maybe she could face herself. I'll try, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Dr. Evan's smile grew wider. That's all I ask. The next few days were filled with small victories. Lyra's confidence began to grow, and with each step, both literal and emotional, she felt a little more like herself. She started to allow herself to trust Dr. Evan more, to let him in, even if just a little at a time. One morning, after a particularly successful treatment, Lyra stood in front of the mirror in her room, taking a deep breath. She could see the changes in her body, in her face. She looked stronger, more confident, but it was more than just physical. There was something in her eyes now, something she hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. When Dr. Evan arrived that morning, he found her standing by the window, staring out at the stars. He didn't say anything at first, just watched her for a moment, taking in the sight of her standing tall. You're ready, Lyra, he said quietly, his voice full of warmth. Lyra turned to him, a small smile on her lips. I think I am. And for the first time, she believed it. She was ready. Ready to let go of the past and step into the future. With Dr. Evan by her side, she no longer felt like she was alone in the world. They had a long way to go, but for the first time in years, Lyra felt like she was finally on the right path. A path toward healing, not just in her body, but in her heart. And she knew, without a doubt, that Dr. Evan would be there every step of the way. A new beginning. The days passed, and with each one, Lyra felt a little stronger. The small, tentative steps she had taken at the beginning of her recovery had turned into strides, and now she was walking, not just with the help of Dr. Evan, but on her own. She had regained a sense of independence she thought she had lost forever. But it wasn't just her body that had healed, it was her spirit, her heart. She looked in the mirror one morning, seeing a reflection she barely recognized. The girl who had once been confined to a bed, trapped in her own thoughts and fears, was gone. In her place stood someone new, someone with hope in her eyes and strength in her heart. And standing beside her, supporting her, was Dr. Evan. He had been there from the start, and now, more than ever, Lyra realized that it wasn't just about her physical healing. It was about the trust they had built, the bond they had formed. She had spent so many years hiding from the world, locking herself away from others, but Dr. Evan had shown her that vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was strength, and she had learned to open her heart to him in a way she had never done with anyone before. Dr. Evan had been more than just a doctor. He had been her guide, her friend, and now, in her heart, something more. But the thought of those feelings scared her. She didn't know how to handle them. She had spent so much time thinking she was unworthy of love, thinking she had nothing to offer anyone. But Dr. Evan had never seen her that way. He had always seen her for who she truly was. One evening, after another successful session of physical therapy, Lyra sat in her room, looking out at the stars. The station was quiet, but her mind was far from peaceful. She had come so far, but now there was something she couldn't ignore anymore. The feelings she had for Dr. Evan, they were impossible to push aside any longer. She had to talk to him. But how? What if he didn't feel the same? What if she was just another patient to him, someone he had helped but had no deeper feelings? Oh, the thought made her heart ache, and she closed her eyes, trying to push the uncertainty away. She didn't know how long she sat there, lost in her thoughts, but soon, she heard the soft sound of footsteps outside her door. She didn't need to look to know it was Dr. Evan. He had become such a constant in her life that even the smallest sound of his presence brought a sense of comfort. The door opened slowly, and he stepped inside, his usual warm smile on his face. "How are you feeling today?" he asked, his eyes bright with care. Lyra gave him a small smile, but it was filled with more than just gratitude. "Better," she said softly, though her heart was pounding in her chest. "I've been thinking." "Thinking?" Dr. Evan raised an eyebrow, curious. "What about?" Lyra stood up, her legs steady beneath her as she walked toward him. She didn't know where to begin. She had kept her feelings buried for so long, and now that they were surfacing, she wasn't sure how to express them. But she had to try. She had to be honest. "About us," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "About everything you've done for me. I don't think I could have made it this far without you. But it's not just that, Dr. Evan. I've started feeling something for you. Something I didn't think I'd ever feel again. And it scares me." Dr. Evan's expression softened, and he took a step closer to her. "Lyra, you don't have to be scared. You've been through so much already. You don't have to carry this alone." Lyra swallowed hard, looking down at her hands. "I don't know what to do with these feelings. I've spent so long hiding from everyone, thinking I didn't deserve to be loved. And now I don't know what to do with what's inside me." Dr. Evan gently lifted her chin, making her look up at him. "Lyra, you deserve everything. You deserve to be happy, to be loved, and to be cared for. And you've already shown me more strength and courage than anyone I've ever met. I don't expect you to know everything right away, but I want you to know that I'm here. I'm here for you, always." His words hit her like a wave, washing away the last of the doubts and fears she had held onto for so long. She had never allowed herself to believe that someone could care for her the way Dr. Evan did. But now, as he stood before her, his hand on her cheek, she realized that she didn't have to be afraid anymore. She didn't have to hide anymore. With a soft breath, Lyra stepped forward, closing the distance between them. She looked up into his eyes, her heart racing. "I'm ready," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm ready to trust you, and I'm ready to let myself love." Dr. Evan smiled, his eyes shining with emotion. "And I'm ready to love you, Lyra." Without another word, he leaned in, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that felt like everything she had been waiting for. It wasn't just the kiss of a doctor and a patient. It was the kiss of two people who had fought against their fears and found a connection that went beyond healing. It was the kiss of a new beginning. As they pulled apart, Lyra felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She no longer felt alone. She no longer felt broken. With Dr. Evan by her side, she felt whole. And for the first time in a long time, she could see a future full of hope, full of love, and full of possibilities. In the days that followed, Lyra and Dr. Evan grew even closer. They continued to work together, but now there was something more between them. It wasn't just about her physical recovery anymore. It was about the journey they were taking together, as partners, as equals. Lyra began to see the world differently. She no longer viewed herself as a burden or as someone who couldn't be loved. She realized that love wasn't just about being perfect. It was about accepting each other, flaws and all. And with Dr. Evan, she knew she had found someone who accepted her completely. As she walked with him through the halls of the station, hand in hand, she felt a sense of peace she had never known before. The future wasn't certain, but it didn't matter. She wasn't afraid anymore. She had Dr. Evan by her side, and together, they were ready to face whatever came their way. And so, with every step she took, Lyra knew that her life had changed forever. She had found her strength, her love, and her new beginning.